Episode 1 of Limo Podcast. And in this episode, we'll be looking at the 7 key points to ask of your limo business, a hot tip to improving your workflow, and how to get people's email addresses from a video.
Limousine, a goddamn flying limousine, and a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine.
Hello and welcome to Limo Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Bottrell. It's the show by limo operators for limo operators. Now, the purpose of this show is to try out new marketing ideas and implement them in my business, and we'll see what happens. It could be a bit of a rough ride. Things might turn out great. Some things we try might fail miserably. So we'll just sweep them under the red carpet and tell no one. Okay, now this being episode 1, I'll give you a bit of a rundown on who I am and what I do and what I'm all about. I'm based in a small country town with a population of about 100,000 people combined in Albury-Wodonga, which is in Australia, which is roughly halfway between Melbourne and Sydney. I've been in the limo industry for 13 years, which I started from scratch. And before that, I was a auto electrician and had my own shop there for a while. And when I got out of the auto electrician game, that's when I started my own limo business. If you want to have a look at the website that I have for my limo business, it is acelimo.com.au. So jump on there and have a look and let me know your thoughts and feedback. Now, my current fleet consists of 2 stretch limousines, one which is a 14-seat Ford Territory, which for you Americans is a SUV style type of limo. The other is a Ford Fairlane, which is probably similar to your town car models in the States, and it's a 9-passenger limo. As well as that, I have a couple of Ford sedans, a Mercedes Mini Coach, and a 1971 XY GT, which is a legendary Australian muscle car. I do a few weddings with it. Now, although I've been in business for 13 years, a lot of that time I was doing the limo business part-time as well as working other jobs. So I won't lie to you, it is a tough industry to be in. It's only the last couple of years where I've gone full-time, so this is my only income. So the marketing and any little bit that can generate that extra few dollars in the bank account is always going to help.
You're listening to the LimoPodcast.com.
Okay, so who is this podcast for, I hear you ask? Well, pretty much anyone that's already in the limousine industry, whether you have a limousine business or if you're a chauffeur, or if you want to be a chauffeur or want to own or start your own limo business, then we can give you some guidance and some great hints and tips. If you're already in the limo industry and doing some wonderful marketing or have some great ideas to share with us of things that have worked for your business, then we'd love to hear from you. So go to the LimoPodcast.com page and fill in your information there and send us your information on how to be a guest on this podcast. So I'd love to hear from anyone around the world that has any sort of interest and think they'd have something they'd like to share. Why am I doing this podcast? Well, about 12 months ago, I'd never heard of a podcast. I didn't even know what it was. And I thought I was pretty up to date with most things on the internet because I've always had an interest in the internet and websites. And I thought I was pretty tech savvy. It appears I wasn't. A friend of mine suggested that I should listen to podcasts on my iPhone. So I found the app on the iPhone and gave it a go. And I found it was great to listen to the podcast while I was driving in the car to kill a bit of time and help me learn a few things along the way instead of wasting my time listening to music, which I rarely listen to these days. And it's also great when you're waiting around between jobs and things as well, because you can learn on the go. And it didn't take me long to stumble across some business-related podcasts, and then I got into some fantastic marketing ones. And that's where the penny dropped for me. Some of the ideas, methods, and the thinking that these guys were talking about really hit home. And I immediately started trying a few different things in my business to see what would and wouldn't work for me. And the results were that fantastic that I just wanted to share them with you guys. And if you want to check out the podcast that I have listened to, I'll leave a list in the show notes. The ones that have really helped me out have been Small Business Big Marketing, which is by Timbo Reid, Freedom Ocean, Preneurcast, and there's another new Australian one called Blokes, Beer and Business. So you'll find all them in the iTunes shop. And I've also just started listening to another one which is called I Love Marketing. It's by Dean Jackson and Joe Polish. And these guys are the experts in marketing and some of the things that they can do or get people to do in the terms of lead generation and following the person right from the initial inquiry right through till the end of the job's done. It's just fantastic. Now, as a result of listening to some of those podcasts, I've since made a lot of changes to the way that I do business, from the small things up into the large things. My whole website I had was 6 years old, and it was getting pretty outdated, and I didn't spend a great deal of time or effort on it. I thought, well, once the website's up there, the people will come to me and shows the basic information. I now have a new website, which is running WordPress, and it's fantastic, and each page has a reason for the person to make an inquiry. I'm also getting right into the social media side of things with Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and paying a lot of attention to YouTube in particular, and into the social marketing side of things, and calls to action of getting people to actually do something once they watch a video or read a tweet or a message on Facebook, and hopefully driving them back to the website and then to fill in the inquiry form or to give me a call. There's also another thing which I'm going to try, and I'd like to share that with you as well. It's called the 7 Levers of Business, which is put together through the guys at Preneurcast, which is Dom Goucher and Pete Williams. And the basic principle behind it is you have a sales funnel, and as you can tweak each of those 7 little inputs going into the funnel, you can generate more income just by adding a small percentage to each of those. So if you add a few more people into the funnel, that'll generate in a few more profits. It's going to be quite exciting to run the numbers from my business into that and see what happens. So I'll share that with you as well. And hopefully, if Pete or Dom's listening to this podcast, they're more than welcome to come onto my show as a special guest, and they can give the right information instead of me fumbling through it.
You're listening to LimoPodcast.com.
Now, hopefully this podcast will be available at least once a week. I'd like to put an episode out, and each episode will probably go for about half an hour. If we have a special guest on, we might get a bit carried away chatting, which is fine. So if you want to keep up with all the latest updates, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to us on the podcast feed on iTunes, follow us on Twitter, which is at LimoPodcast, find us on Facebook, which is also LimoPodcast, or just go to LimoPodcast.com and you'll see all the links there on how you can get involved and keep in touch when the new episodes are out. And while you're there, why don't you click on the send voicemail link on the right-hand side, and you can record your own audio question, and then we can play it back on the show and hopefully answer it. Or if I can't answer it, we'll put the call out to someone that hopefully can. And if you're on the Limo Podcast website, you'll notice it looks a bit trashy at the moment with all the links and things, but they're a bit of a necessity at the moment because it's only a first show. We're only up and running. So if you'd like to support this podcast, you can purchase anything from the Limo shop link up the top. There's plenty of limo-related parts on there and a few T-shirts and funny hats and all sorts of things. And that's part of my Amazon link. You can also donate via the PayPal button on the website for any amount you like. I'm happy to take anyone's money and buy myself a cold beer. Or if you don't have a website for your limo business, you can sign up for a HostGator account through the link up the top of the page. And all of that helps me out and helps pay for the podcast. Okay, enough ranting. Let's get into the show to give you an idea of the topics and things that I'd like to cover in upcoming episodes. These things interest me, so hopefully they'll interest you. If not, then let me know. We can move pace and shift over to something else. So I'll start with what I have put together quickly as the 7 key points to ask of your limo business. So these are 7 things that are pretty much a must these days, pretty much in any business. And admittedly, I've put the list together, but I'm only on top of about 3 of them at the moment. So as we progress through the podcast, I'll be trying out some of these new things and letting you know how I go. So let's begin with number 1. do you have a website? That's pretty basic. I guess having a website is one thing, but having a website that is performing for you and getting the people to it and getting the results that you want is another thing. As I mentioned before, my old website was 6 years old and I barely touched it. And it's a bit of a shame on me because I was making websites for other people and concentrating on improving their businesses, and my little old business got left behind. Number 2, are you on social media? That's a pretty straightforward one. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that type of thing. And I guess, do you know how to use it properly more than just sending your friends messages or sending out a tweet that you're at the airport? Okay, number 3, do you have a YouTube channel with content and a clear purpose? So having a YouTube channel is a great start if you haven't got one already, to show off your vehicles and things. I've only just started most of those last 3 in the last 12 months, and we'll talk about those in depth as well and hopefully get some guests on that can delve into it deeper. Okay, number 4, are you using a mailing list? So if you're not too sure what a mailing list is, it's basically collecting email addresses and hopefully names and phone numbers of people who either deal with any part of your business, or they may be current or previous customers. So if you're sending out invoices and things via email, you can already make a start to a mailing list. Now, I've started a mailing list only about 2 months ago. I've probably got about 120 people on the list at the moment. So it's not a really big list, but I've sent out 2 little test campaigns and one of them come back with some good results, which was good. So I can share those with you in the future. And if you've got a mailing list, and we'd love to know all about it and how it's been working for you and how you make the most of it. So let us know. Okay, number 5. This is a fairly important one, which I've only just started doing in the last few weeks. Do you track where your inquiries are coming from? So when you get an inquiry from your website, when people fill the form out, do you actually know if they've seen your ad in the yellow pages, or have they done a Google search or watched one of your videos? It's only a matter of putting a few extra questions in the bottom of your website inquiry form to find that out. Or there's another better way, which we'll touch on in a second. So it's important to know where the inquiries are coming from, and that way you can work out if you're wasting your time and money, spending money in the wrong places, or whether there's something that you haven't spent money on that you probably could that will get you better results than what you're currently doing. Okay, what are we up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you know your conversion rate? So that's the number of inquiries to the actual number of people that go and book your limo service. And that's part of the 7 levers that we'll hopefully touch on in the future episodes as well. And number 7, which is only another recent thing that I've put on my own websites. Do you have analytics on your website? If you haven't, go and do it right now. It's free. Just type into Google Analytics, and Google actually have a code which you can paste into the background of your website. If you've got a WordPress website, then that's even easier. You can just get a Google Analytics plugin, and you can be up and running in no time, and it's normally activated within 24 hours, and that'll give you reports about how the people have found your website, what they're doing on the website, how long they're spending on the website, what things they're clicking on. That's so much information that it's probably 2 or 3 shows worth to discuss that in detail. So they're the 7 key points that you need to ask your limo business, and we can work on any of those and more in upcoming episodes.
You're listening to the LimoPodcast.com.
Okay, it's time for a quick tip, and today's tip of the day is an app called Evernote. Now, what Evernote is, you can download it onto your iPhone. I'm assuming they do it for Android as well. And as I listen to the podcast, I type in some of the notes and things that I want to remember into the Evernote app. And if you put it on your other machines, if you've got a machine in your office or a laptop, you can also sync them all together. So anything that I type into the Evernote app, and I can tag it with whichever podcast or set it up in its own notebook. So anything, if I'm out and about on the road, I can type the details into the Evernote app, and that'll automatically be stored and spread and shared across my computers. You can also drop photos in there, links, all sorts of wonderful things. So I found that really good when listening to podcasts as a way to keep track of things instead of scribbling notes and ideas down on bits of paper that get lost. And I've even gone the next step of trying to remember to put the details in when somebody rings and makes a phone call inquiry, of storing the inquiry for their job into Evernote as well, so that I do have a copy on my computer and can refer back to it quickly and just tag it with the date or the vehicle that the people wanted to hire. And another thing that I use Evernote for is if I find that a vehicle needs some maintenance on its next service or has a minor problem that may need fixing, I can just put that into Evernote as well, and that will remind me when I'm looking in there under the maintenance section of what needs doing at the next service. So it's a good way to keep track of your cars and not forget things. Now, the other quick tip that I want to share with you regarding the video content and combining that with mailing list. So how would you get somebody's details to put on your mailing list from them watching a video? Well, the answer is quite simple. It's a plugin for WordPress which is called Lead Player by Clay Collins, I think it is. I'll put the link in the show notes for you. And if you go to the acelimo.com.au website and watch any of the videos on there, at the end of the video it'll pop up and ask you if you want to sign up to the mailing list. So that's quite a successful way of getting the people's interest in watching the video. And then at the end of the video you can grab them and grab their details, and then you can mark it to them down the track. And with the Lead Player as well, which I haven't tried as yet, you can also set it to only allow them to watch the video after they've put their email address in, or you can stop the video halfway through and only let them watch the last half after they put the email address in. So it might be something that we can give a go down the track and do what they call split test and see which one works better, or whether we scare everybody away and it all fails.
You're listening to the LimoPodcast.com.
Now that's about it for Limo Podcast Episode 1. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's only been a short episode. I'll try to keep the next episodes a little bit longer, depending on the content. And if you could do me a favour and give me some feedback, I'd like to know how the sound quality is, what you think of the content and the show format, and I'd like to ask you a question, and that is, what is your biggest problem that you have in your limousine business? So just jump onto LimoPodcast.com and answer that question, hopefully via the send voicemail tag on the right-hand side of the website. So leave us an audio message and we'll play it back on the show and replay from there. And also I'd like to know how many times I've said the word throughout this podcast. I've edited a few of them out, but I don't think I've got all of them. Now I'm going to play you out with a song that I found by At The Wax, which is a song called Limousine. And don't forget, you can catch me on Twitter as well, at LimoPodcast.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em. We came to the top all the way from the bottom. Now I'm just trying to count my blessings. I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. Limousine, a goddamn flying limousine in a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. I'm by the fire, Hugh Hefner-esque, feeling like I just found a huge treasure chest. I used to never sweat death, now I trip about it. This life's too good for me to even live without it. It's so surreal, and it ain't about the dough or the deal. It's about the feeling in your soul that you feel when that little feeling in your soul becomes real. Lady Luck crept up on me like a crazy fuck, tapped me with the wand on the shoulder as a way of making up for the tears that have poured, the years I've endured when anxiety and fear left me floored. The stress would creep from down under like koala bears, had me gritting my teeth and pulling out my noggin hairs. But now through some type of dumb luck, I've come up and I'm all struck by my surroundings. So smoke 'em if you got 'em. We came to the top all the way from the bottom. And And I'm just trying to count my blessings. I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. Limousine, a goddamn flying limousine in a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. So never say never, the pain from the past makes the pleasure way better. You gotta feel the lowest lows to get the highest highs. Blow your nose, dry your eyes, open roads, waiting and it's time to drive. Isn't it scenic after all the world's small? Why you trying to see it faster? Beautiful woman hitchhiking while you're speeding past her. Pick her up and take a visit into greener pastures. The road of life's bumpy like cobblestone, pothole, problem prone, seatbelt digging in your collarbone. But you are not alone. Stand still traffic even in the no stopping zone. The slow lane will never be your own lane. Merge left and get the fuck up the road, man. Me and EOM are in our own plane. Look directly up and see us at the window saying, smoke 'em if you got 'em. We came to the top all the way from the bottom. And I'm just trying to count my blessings. I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. Limousine, a goddamn flying limousine in a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine. Limousine, I wouldn't leave here to go to heaven in a flying limousine.
If you would like to support your Limo podcast,
Purchase your limo parts, t-shirts or coffee cups via the Limo shop at LimoPodcast.com.
donate with the PayPal button on the website.
Or if you need web hosting for your Limo website, then click the HostGator banner.
Donut with the PayPal.
Donut.